This Sunday, and Alternative Facts, a special edition of Meet the Press.
Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd.
Well, this morning we're going to hear from top players in journalism, diplomacy, and technology about combating truth manipulation and how Russian tactics have migrated right here to the United States.
He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
Citizens, of course, are complicit in the spread of alternative facts.
Folks, in that same interview, Pelosi said the president is unfit for office. Not to mention 7 in 10 Democrats who voted in the midterm said that Congress should impeach the president. And that was before there was any hard evidence that the president was directly involved in a campaign felony. And that was before there was any hard evidence that the president was directly involved in a campaign felony.
It's fake, it's made up.
Ha ha! If truth is pushed into a wood chipper, leaving us to say, I don't know what to believe, then alternative facts haven't just fought truth to a draw. Alternative facts may have already won.
Well, the game is on. You tell me, you look at this map, what's the most important thing?
This is our new battleground map. As you see, look, we still have her over 270. So we're saying here, and so the most important thing to know about this map is, right now this is where we see the battleground, which means that if you watch Donald Trump's number here, he can win Florida, he can win North Carolina, and he can win Ohio and still be short.
Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Look, alternative facts are not facts.
I explained that was alternative information, additional facts. And I explained it many times.
They're falsehoods.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
We choose truth over facts.
As we talked about here last night, fake news played a role in this election and continues to find a wide audience. A BuzzFeed news study of Donald Trump's own tweets, where they follow back news stories to their root source, found more of them came from Breitbart originally than from any other single source.
Williams was suspended after the discovery that he fabricated a story about coming under fire on a helicopter during the Iraq War.
But look what happened the day before, talking about falsehoods. We allowed the press spray to come into the Oval Office. What happens almost immediately? A falsehood is told about removing the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Oval Office. That's just flat out false.
As of December 10th, the president had made 15,413 false or misleading claims in office. That, according to the Washington Post.
Did I hurt its little feelings?
Completely powerless.
If we could get like 8 of these, we could dress them all up like little beavers, right? And then put them in a pond and see if they build a dam.
Here's one thing I know for sure. Fox News, Donald Trump, and the Republicans, they care about fake news.
Just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
Right, whatever, it's all fiction. And I'll tell you, they don't have sources. You know what they do? They make it up.
Mr. Trump is leveraging the polarized political climate.
There are 4 things that disinformation actors do if they want to attack their enemies or defend themselves against criticism. And you can think of them as the 4 Ds.
Number 1, dismiss. Attack critics to erode their credibility and invalidate the facts.
The fake news.
Fake news. Fake news. Fake news.
Mr. Trump has used the word fake on Twitter more than 800 times.
A few minutes ago,
we hate to do this, really, but the president isn't telling the truth. These allegations against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden that he's repeating have been investigated.
And they probably know that Joe Biden and his son are corrupt.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
See? Right there. He says it himself. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. The prosecutor Biden demanded be fired was investigating Burisma, the energy company his son Hunter had an $83,000 a month job working for.
What's amazing is that what Trump appears to be trying to do is to turn his own impeachment into a big deflection.
But as it relates to Joe Biden, it's important to note that this story has been looked at and thoroughly debunked by everyone involved.
Cash for clunkers, right? This president gig might not last all that long, but if you can make it work while you've got the job, if you can literally take millions of dollars from U.S. taxpayers to stuff into the coffers of your failing business. But now, miraculously, now that Donald Trump is president, American military cargo planes have started refueling at that airport at a significant price markup. Right? It's much cheaper for them to get their fuel at military bases. That's part of the reason they always stop at military bases. Also, they're the military. They're no longer stopping at military bases. Instead, they're stopping at the airport that Trump needs to prop up in order to keep his Scottish golf resort going. And they are paying full freight commercial airport rates for that fuel. And then they're sending the air crews to go stay at the president's resort.
There's a few glaring problems with the story. First, the article states unnamed crew members said they had never stopped at Prestwick Airport before in dozens of trips between the U.S. and the Middle East. That's blatantly not true. The Air Force signed a contract for refueling at Prestwick back in 2016 before Trump entered office, partly because it's the only military stopover in the area that's open 24 hours a day. And according to the public database, Air Force planes have made at least 936 stops there since 2015. Some of which have been posted on YouTube, like this one from July 2016, a full 6 months before Trump became president.
No, instead, they're going to the commercial airport that Trump needs to keep alive, that's otherwise maybe going to go out of business, because they need that airport, presumably, to keep afloat his nearby golf resort, which might also be going out of business.
Public documents do show that the State Department was charged during President Trump's stay in July 2018. Check this out. Turnberry costs £95 per night. Nearby Blythewood Square Hotel costs £215 a night. The Hilton Glasgow, £249. Even the cheapest hotel, the Radisson Blu, was £179 a night, nearly double the charges incurred at the Turnberry. So the choice seems obvious to me. Bottom line, there's absolutely zero proof that stopovers at Prestwick and Turnberry are lining the president's pockets.
Oh, son of a bitch.
So the president, with this thing on poster board in the Oval Office, he appears to be presenting real U.S. government information to the public. Bloomberg News today citing sources saying that the president is the one who drew on this map and changed it.
But that was the original chart, and you see it was going to hit not only Florida but Georgia. It could have was going toward the Gulf. That was what was originally projected, and it took a right turn. I know that Alabama was in the original forecast. They thought it would get it as a piece of it. It was supposed to go, actually, we have a better map than that, which is going to be presented, where we had many lines going directly, many models, each line being a model, and they were going directly through. And in all cases, Alabama was hit, if not lightly, in some cases pretty hard. Georgia, Alabama was a different route. They actually gave that a 95% chance probability. It turned out that that was not what happened. It made the right turn.
According to CNN tonight, it was some other official besides the president who drew on the map before the president held it up.
Early on, Dorian took an unexpected right turn as it approached the southeastern United States instead of following its initial projected path. But now video is surfacing of a CNN weather forecaster proving the president to be right.
And then also even into the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana, Alabama, Indiana, Alabama, Mississippi. You need to be on the lookout.
Oh, son of a bitch.
And the fake news, which is you and you.
Number 2, distort. If the facts are against you, make up your own facts.
In many places,
like California, the same person votes many times. Not a conspiracy theory, folks. Millions and millions of people.
Another huge mistake by the DMV, registering some 1,500 people who are ineligible to vote.
California now allows undocumented aliens to obtain driver's licenses, and the new Motor Voter Act automatically registers them to vote when they renew their licenses or get a new one.
Over 1 million undocumented immigrants have received California driver's licenses since AB 60 went into effect in January 2015.
Last time, Jim, you were on this show, you claimed you have evidence that California's DMV was allowing illegals to vote.
Democrats in California are in denial. They believe that no voter fraud exists, and they're wrong.
Number 3, distract. Whataboutism?
The Clinton campaign trying to pivot to get back on a negative message is not the way they wanted to close this down, but by necessity, because look at what Donald Trump was doing today. Every other word was that she's a criminal, she's a liar, she lied to the FBI. If she had lied to the FBI, she would be under indictment. There's no question about that.
Your wife, Patrice, Hillary Clinton supporter.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't take a poll among all the kids, but I'm pretty sure that at least my 4 daughters, probably all 5 of my kids, wanted Hillary Clinton to be the first woman president.
I wanted a woman president really badly, and I supported Hillary Clinton. A lot of my friends worked for her, and I was devastated when she lost.
The two things are not exactly the same, right? Trump has actually been making stuff up, and what she has to do is remind people of why they don't like Donald Trump in the aggregate.
Number 4, dismay. Threats and intimidation.
We are going to take a strong look at our country's libel laws.
One real fear, if both sides normalize disinformation as a political tactic.
Right now, one of the top political spenders on Facebook ads is Donald Trump. His re-election campaign is paying Facebook about $1 million per week to run ads on the platform. And what the Trump campaign has been paying to do is flood Facebook with bogus, flatly false ads about Joe Biden.
Meanwhile, another Democratic presidential hopeful has officially surged past President Trump when it comes to online ad spending. Former Vice President Joe Biden's campaign has dished out $1.5 million on Google and Facebook ads.
He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Very fine people on both sides?
So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture.
With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it.
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Very fine people on both sides?
And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. Condemned totally. Condemned totally. Because they should be condemned totally.
And what the Trump campaign has been paying to do is flood Facebook with bogus, flatly false ads about Joe Biden. Despite complaints from the Biden campaign, Facebook is refusing to take down the false ads.
This isn't a company that's really run by liberals for liberals. In fact, it's setting some rules that are providing some fairly significant advantages to Trump.
Shut up! And joining me now is the executive editor of the Washington Post, Martin Barron, and the executive editor of the New York Times, Dean Baquet.
Their credibility is in crisis. They don't really have any credibility. And especially after 2.5 years, all the major networks, 2 cable networks, New York Times, Washington Post, yeah, they went with the biggest lying conspiracy theory hoax in modern political history. And they never admitted they're wrong. And
Dean, let me start with this. This is what your chief White House correspondent Peter Baker wrote very recently. There are days in Washington lately when it feels like the truth itself is on trial. Well, help us make sense of that.
I mean, our job, and it's a hard job, but our job, and I think our newsrooms have been sort of rebuilt to do this, is to very aggressively sort out fact from fiction.
Now, in this program for years, we have documented night after night how much of the media is just simply an extension of the Democratic Party. The paper's leadership, they came clean. about how anti-Trump their agenda really is. All this breathless hysteria and all that they preview, all the conspiracy theories they push. Even the Times is now admitting that they went all in on the collusion delusion, with an executive editor, Dean Baquet, telling employees that once the Russia hoax unraveled, the story became, quote, trickier. Before adding, quote, we built our newsroom to cover one story, and we did it truly well. No, they didn't. Nah, they were proven wrong. They were disappointed by Mueller. Now we have to regroup, shift resources and emphasis to take on a different story. Oh, what does that mean, a different story? It means they spent years pushing their conspiracy theories, their Russian lies, misinformation, propaganda, all to help the Democrats, and they failed miserably with their lies and conspiracy theories.
And to very aggressively work to make sure that people trust us and understand that that's our job. I mean, Marty has a very extensive fact-checking operation, yes, as do we. And those things didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. And they're an acknowledgement that one of the jobs of the news media is to sort through all of the BS, if I can say that, and come do the kind of deep reporting that we all grew up doing.
And yet another member of the mainstream media retracting fake news about President Trump spread by former National Security Advisor Susan Rice.
17 agencies came to a consensus conclusion that the Russian government at the highest levels was involved in an effort to play in our electoral process.
Well, it turns out not all 17 intelligence agencies were involved. It was only 4. Just yesterday, the New York Times quietly issued a correction as well.
Do the kind of deep reporting that we all grew up doing.
Yesterday, the Times announced it was hiring a woman called Sarah Zhang to write about technology for the paper. Within hours, readers discovered Zhang's Twitter feed, which she had not bothered to delete, apparently because she was not embarrassed by it. Judging by what she wrote on Twitter, Sarah Zhang is an angry bigot, and not in a subtle way.
First of all, Zhang's tweets are racist. Calling for white genocide is racist. Saying you enjoy torturing old white men is racist. Tweeting that white people sharing their opinions is the same as a dog urinating on a fire hydrant, that is also racist.
Well, people are getting fired for far less than this across corporate America right now, but the New York Times decided to double down on Sarah Zhang's behalf. Zhang's journalism and the fact she is a young Asian woman have made her a subject of frequent online harassment. For a period of time, she responded to that harassment by imitating the rhetoric of her harassers. In other words, it's not her fault. White racism caused Sarah Zhang's racism against white people. She's the victim here. Harvard graduate, oppressed person that she is.
You talked with us shortly after February 14th when the New York Times wrote an article that suggested that the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians. You remember reading that article when it first came out?
I do.
In addition to that, after that, you sought out both Republican and Democrat senators to tell them that, hey, I don't know where this is coming from, but this is not the case. This is not factual. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. So again, so the American people can understand this, that report by the New York Times was not true. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, in the main, it was not true.
The New York Times ran an editor's note correcting a glaring omission in an accusation against Brett Kavanaugh, one that touched off a political firestorm. In a book excerpt, Times reporters Robin Pogrebin and Kate Kelly charged that Kavanaugh exposed himself at another of those drunken Yale parties 35 years ago. But the forthcoming book says the woman in question, who supposedly wound up touching his genitals, won't comment, and, quote, several of her friends says she does not recall it.
Come do the kind of deep reporting that we all grew up doing.
That crucial point was left out of the Times story by the same reporters, which was based on secondhand information from one former classmate, Max Steyer, who wasn't identified as a former Bill Clinton lawyer. The authors didn't talk to Steyer, but to 2 unnamed officials said to have spoken with him.
Earlier this week, the New York Times published a help wanted ad. A staffer actually tweeted this: "Folks, the New York Times needs your help. We're looking for false information being spread deliberately to confuse, mislead, or influence voters ahead of the 2018 midterms. Tip line here, please share." I love the folks part. That's so we'll think they're actually human.
We don't see CNN or the New York Times rooting
voting for any president, whether a Democrat or Republican.
The New York Times editorial board just announcing that they are endorsing Hillary Clinton for president.
The former executive editor of the New York Times, Jill Abramson, criticizing that newspaper in her upcoming book, calling the Times news coverage unmistakably anti-Trump. Hate Trump every second, every minute, every hour of every day, which apparently will now be retreating to the old Democratic talking point. They want to now go through and basically tattoo on Donald Trump. He's a racist, racist, racist. I guess because Stormy, impeachment, collusion, Russia failed.
Marty, you actually tweeted a quote from a column with a question that I actually think crystallizes the challenge. And you did this tweet about a year ago. And the column said this: how do you address beliefs when they're not rooted in reality? How do you tell someone, I'm trying to treat your fears seriously, but your facts don't exist? How as individuals and how as a country? Like this.
If you people would give straight news, I'd be at 70. I'd be maybe at 75. But you don't give straight news, you give fake news. With fake news, I'm still winning the election.
Well, look, we live in an environment where people are able to spread crazy conspiracy theories and absolute falsehoods and lies. And that's made possible by the internet and social media. And people are drawn to sources of information, so-called information, that confirms their pre-existing points of view. And, that's what's contributing to this environment that we have today.
So Dave Weigel, reporter for the Washington Post, tweeted a picture he shouldn't have tweeted. I'll give you the full context. Dave Weigel posted a picture of an arena with many empty seats. He deleted the tweet after learning that the venue had not yet filled up. Now, he shows the one that Weigel tweeted in the up top there, where the stadium is not filled, and then the accurate pictures of the stadium actually filled during the event. Donald Trump is right about that.
Trump derangement is an actual thing. It makes it so people who may even otherwise be rational and intelligent lose their minds, and quite often it makes them see Nazis everywhere.
You, Dean, pointed this out about the increase in fact-checking that both of you as news organizations, we've been doing more of it. But you've chronicled over 15,000 false or misleading claims just by the president. Why do you believe that's important? And are you concerned at some point at 15,000, aren't people numb to it?
Well, they might be numb to it, and that's concerning. But we still have the responsibility for determining what's true and what's false.
A lot of Vermont citizens understandably went into panic mode recently after the Washington Post ran this headline: Russian hackers penetrated U.S. electricity grid through a utility in Vermont. But as it turns out, that story was fake.
We still have the responsibility for determining what's true and what's false.
Without saying anything, the authors went in and made changes to the article as though nothing had happened.
Well, it might help if the media stopped their nonstop war on Trump. That's wishful thinking. The Washington Post today reported that the Trump administration will stop prosecuting parents who cross the border illegally with children. One problem: the story wasn't accurate. The Post neglected to reach out to the Department of Justice, and now the story has been corrected.
In other words, the story in the Washington Post was a fake.
Marty, first to you, and then Dean. I want to put up this poll number. When folks were asked in a CBS poll, where do they go for trusted information among Trump supporters, they cited the president himself. 91% of Trump supporters said it's where they go for accurate information. Fact checks be damned here.
Well, that's true. And I think that's the way the president would like to have it. He has described us as the opposition party. That goes all the way back to the presidential campaign. He wants us to be perceived as the opposition party, and so that people will dismiss anything that we have to say. He wants to disqualify the mainstream media as an arbiter of facts and of truth, and he wants to disqualify others. He wants to disqualify the courts. He wants to disqualify historians. He wants to disqualify scientists, any independent source of information.
Wake up, okay? The Washington Post referred to the ISIS leader as a religious scholar. Yeah, they referred to the ISIS leader as a religious scholar.
This al-Baghdadi is a mass murderer. He tortured, he raped. You had the parents on. It was so pathetic to watch them. It was heartrending.
This guy was a terrorist thug
who would cut the head off an innocent man at the drop of a hat. I mean, really, to the Washington Post, do you hate this president so much that you're willing to throw everything away, your integrity, your morals, everything? I mean, that's a serious question. I'm not kidding. Listen, I got no personal beef with the Washington Post. I don't know most of those people. I don't read the paper. I think it's garbage. That's my opinion. Other people may have a different opinion. They've been wrong on just about every big story of the Trump era. But are you kidding? We just killed one of the world's most dangerous people who would, at a moment's notice, kill thousands, tens of thousands of Americans, and you write about his wire-framed glasses and his beard? I mean, come on, guys. Get your heads out of your asses. This is unbelievable.
Dean, do we have to market the truth? And what I mean by this is, you know, he's out there a lot, essentially delegitimizing our professions.
It's fake, it's made up, and a fiction. And I'll tell you, they don't have sources. You know what they do? They make it up.
We don't fight back like a candidate. We don't fight back like a campaign. Do we need to start campaigning around the country to say, no, here's how facts work. Here's what reporting is. Here's what journalists are. Oh, by the way, if I utter a fact on TV on purpose, I get fired.
They say worse things about the president of the United States of America. They can't say nothing nice about President Trump and all the good things that he is doing, but y'all want to call the ISIS leader a religious scholar? This man murdered thousands and thousands of innocent people. He is a killer, not no religious scholar. He's a killer, okay? So y'all know what? Y'all are a bunch of ISIS sympathizers. That's what y'all are, a bunch of ISIS sympathizers.